I'm going to start with boys and girls. That's just how it's going to happen.
Just do it.
Boys and girls, welcome to the next episode of Investing in Single-Family Homes. This is our season 2, and where Steve and I are taking a deeper dive into the world of investing into single-family homes, and we have an amazing guest for you today. But let me first say and introduce my co-host. My name is Alex. And my co-host is Steve Rosenberg.
And it's rare that we're together. We're actually in the same room together, which is not very common. Thanks for having me. I love being here. It's going to be a great show. We got someone who's a ball of energy. It'll be a good conversation with her. Also, for people that are new to the show, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes. We've got a Facebook group, the Mastermind Real Estate Investment Club. Join the group. There's a lot of information in there. You know, we're not selling anything. We just want investors, like-minded investors on the Facebook group to have conversations. And, you know, again, we're all investors. We're just trying to get better. So, we do webinars on there. We do meetups, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's a good place for investors to converse. And, Ashley and I have a common bond of both being Bigger Pockets guests, which you haven't been, right?
Okay.
Just making sure. I'm just making sure. Okay.
Yeah, I have not been. I've noticed when you opened, you said thanks for having me, bro. This is
that's true.
You're hosting the show.
I know. It's just I'm trying to be humble. I want to be humble.
Let me really.
Well, not really.
Let me introduce the real guest here, who's we have the pleasure and honor to have on the show today, Ashley Hamilton, and I've met her. I met her when I listened to the Bigger Pockets podcast episode where she was a guest. That was her very first show, and to me, I was just stuck I was in the car, so I stopped the car when I got home and I had to just stay there in the car for 20 minutes to finish out the podcast. That's how, to me, groundbreaking her story was, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show, Ashley. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's such an honor to be on a show with you guys. I really appreciate it.
So let's play with some data. We say, okay, well, she's awesome. Well, how awesome is she? Well, let's just throw this nugget out there. In 2009, when Ashley started, she had 0 properties, right? And in 2019, today, she owns 15 properties. And Ashley, is this your main source of income these days, or do you actually do other work?
Yeah, this is the main source of income, but I am a Jill of all trades, kind of like a jack of all trades. So I still work a 9 to 5, but I only work part-time. So I work 20 hours a week for a bank. I own my own property management company. I have 35 units on top of mine that I invest for out-of-state investors. I'm doing coaching a little bit on my Instagram, trying to build the social media up. I am doing active renovations for these flips and managing my own properties. And then also I'm a single mother to 2 teenagers. So that's my most important job. That's the one I cannot plug in a person to replace me for. And that's the one that I take most pride in. That was really my why. So I'm really excited to be a mother to them and be able to do it I feel like I'm doing a good job at it now. And kind of seeing my why and the sacrifices I made in the beginning, seeing it come into fruition with being able to spend so much time with my kids, to the point where they get tired of me, honestly. I'm like, look, your mom is cool. I have 100,000 views on YouTube. And then my son's like, well, I'm not trying to be funny, but this kid got 1 million views reviewing a toy and it's only been up for 2 days. I'm like, what? Are you serious? But I don't, so honestly, I feel like in the long run, they'll see all the great things I've done, but they are appreciative and I really enjoy it.
And something I think the viewers need to know is that you are in a market that is not known for investing, and that's your handle on Instagram, Detroit_investor. So you're in a Detroit market, which I don't know what it's doing right now. I know over the years it's been a depressed market. Has that helped you or has that hurt you being an investor? Because I know sometimes when you're in a market that people pass by, there's sometimes a lot of deals there that no one's looking at that you can scoop up. And I'm just curious if that's what's going on where you are, or is it tough?
Yeah, no, it really helped me. When I first got, especially for a person starting like myself, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but just a brief background, I had no real estate experience. No one in my family's in real estate. No one owned a home or owned a business. I didn't have credit or anything like that. I was making $20,000 a year as a waitress. My parents didn't have a 401k, or they didn't own a home to do a HELOC on. So if you're starting from nothing, this was the perfect market for me. And it was just luckily that I lived in Detroit my whole entire life. So basically what I would just say, when I went to a seminar back in 2009, there was a quote about being fearful when others are greedy and being greedy when others are fearful. And that really stuck out because every time I called a lender, everything I looked online, everybody was saying, stay away from Detroit. So I took that as being greedy because others were being fearful. And at the time I was picking up properties for 5,000, 4,000. Some I even picked up for $1,900.
Wow. And I remember reading in your bio, you used your tax return to buy your first property. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. So my first property was $6,300, and I was only making $20,000 a year. But because I had two kids, I was getting back about $5,000 in tax return. So instead of my friends were buying new cars or getting new furniture or taking trips, and I just decided not to do any of those things that year. And I took my $5,000 and saved about $1,300 over 3 months. And that's how I was able to purchase my first property in Detroit.
So let me ask you this, Ashley, and this is, I think, important for people that are maybe in your situation you were in. What mental shift did you have to do from having the regular 9 to 5 of being a waitress and working, and basically going against the grain and going against what everyone else says you should do, and putting that faith in an unknown? And again, it's not like you had family that was in the construction business or anything. What was it mentally that you were able to tell yourself to keep on the path? Was it a want, or was it a need? Like, did you have to do it, or is it something that you just kind of wanted to do in your mind?
I really wanted to do it. I had to do it if I wanted my family, my last name, and my kids to ever have a different life than I had. It was absolutely necessary. I wanted to do it because I wanted to spend more time with my kids, and I did not want them to grow up like I did and go to different daycare centers and things like that. So I needed to spend more time with them and work less. And that was the want and the need to do it. So the mind change. And then I wasn't like a really social person. So I never liked all the flashy things and new gadgets and things like that. So I was okay with foregoing those things because I knew how the life I wanted to live in the future. So it was a mind change shift. And I would say it kind of all sparked from the seminar I went to, the first seminar, but it really was a want to do it, but I needed to do it because I needed to provide a different lifestyle for my children.
What advice would you give to people if someone's watching this show right now and they're kind of going, man, what did she, what can I tell myself to get myself over the edge? Like I've always learned that it's a matter of not letting fear, paralyze you, and just taking action and being okay with making mistakes, because everyone's afraid to make a mistake, but we all make mistakes every day and we're okay with that. But what advice would you give someone if there's a single mother out there thinking, man, I wish I could be like her? What would you tell that person?
Right. So I would just tell them, you never make a mistake, or you never lose. You know what I'm saying? You just learn a lesson. So if it's not life threatening or something like that, you can always learn something or win from the situation. You just may have to do it a little longer. That's definitely so. What started the whole thing was the quote that I heard from Warren Buffett was, live how most people won't, so you can live how most people don't. And what that kind of meant for me is take a few years. I feel like I'm young. I was 23 at the time. I had 2 years to just stop with buying anything extra, kind of like a Dave Ramsey, and try to live debt free and try to buckle down and save everything I had to make the goal. So once you do, that's, to me, I feel like that's the biggest thing for people to forgo. Everybody wants the nicer cars, even iPhones. Honestly, they're so expensive now. The money that you're investing in your iPhone and phone bill, that could be a property in Detroit if you just didn't do it for 1 year, so that would be the biggest advice, is living frugal. And I know it's hard, but because everybody wants the instant gratification, right? So if I go buy a new iPhone, I instantly have an iPhone that I can show the world. But if I spend $5,000 and put a down payment on a house, I'm not really getting anything back instantly, because I have to do the work to fix it up and find a tenant. So just try to not focus on the instant gratification and the delayed gratification. I mean, I feel like the compromises and the sacrifices that I made early on, I mean, it's like I'm gratified every day for it, So it's like the gratification has came 10 times more now that I delayed it, kind of. So just live frugally, and you're be willing to make mistakes, but just get in there, because honestly, there's more people that know more about real estate than me, obviously, but they haven't done as many deals as me. Because everybody goes in and they think, well, I got to know what happens when a contractor don't show up, or I got to know how to use their utilities. Well, I just threw myself in there. When an issue came up, I just handled it as it went. And obviously, it's very important to educate yourself, but just get in there. So if you have to just do a deal on a different side of town where you can invest the least amount of money just to get started, to kind of go through the trials and tribulations so you can learn, that would be great, just so that you wouldn't lose so much money up front. But you have to do a deal, even if it's a partnership, because I've done all these deals and I still have issues that I'm facing to this day. So if you spend so much time on just trying to learn everything, you'll know so much, but you won't get any deals done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now, do you have any regrets of doing what you're doing, or would you, obviously we maybe doing it again, you may like say, oh, I wouldn't make that mistake, but a lot of times those mistakes are lessons that make you better. Do you have any regrets of anything that you've done?
Not at all. I mean, I regret not leveraging credit cards and debt to buy more. Right. I wish I would have known enough and just bought more. So as far as buying, no, the only regret is just not diving in, full fledged back then.
It's funny. I've always heard a saying, and it was, very successful people never say, I wish I didn't do as much as I did. Like, they never say they have a regret that they did too much. They're always going to say, I wish I would have started sooner. I wish I would not have let fear stop me. I wish I would have, it's never the, man, I really made too much money in my lifetime. I really, I had too good of a life. I've never heard a successful person say that. Have you ever said that?
No.
Yeah, that's weird.
The one thing I was going to ask you, Ashley, is when you were getting started and you diving into it head first, this is one thing I read from, like, somebody set this up. So I read Steve's book, and he's talking about investing in these dilapidated properties in, we'll call them D class. Would you say D class? D class properties in Houston, where it was just, they were just losing their butt, like him and his partner, and they decided to double down because, hey, maybe at scale we can make it work, and it didn't work. They could make it work. What class of properties did you like? What was your first property? I know it because I listen to podcasts, but let's talk to the listeners and walk through how you were able to acquire and then stabilize and then get that property going.
So in Detroit, it's not technically, to me at least, it's not a class neighborhood. So for example, my first property I paid $6,300 for. So you would think there was in a war zone, maybe a dilapidated area where lack of development, but it was the complete opposite. I had homeowners on my street, a nice park. I was close to all the suburbs, all the transportation, and it was just a really nice area. And even now, I've since I moved out, I stayed in that house for 5 years, but I rent that house out for $775 a month. So I make $9,300 a year, and I only paid $6,300 for it. So that speaks up to the neighborhood that it is. Sure. Detroit is really block by block. So I feel like the only reason Detroit does not have the super high prices is just because of the weather. You never know. You may get 10 inches of snow, you know, and it obviously it draws a lot of people from here, but it's not really like when I went out to California and Vegas, I travel a ton, and just seeing the areas out there, Detroit is really not like that where you can classify the areas, because in one zip code you'll have a property that's worth $500,000, and you could also have a property that's worth 20,000. So it's not so much as class here, it's just the amount of work that you put into it, you know, stuff like that. So but to get to your question, how it all started, the first property when I bought it, like I said, it was $6,300, and it only needed minor repairs. So obviously paint, someone had stolen the furnace and the hot water tank, and it needed plumbing. Anything else would have just been an upgrade, but just to get it livable, it was probably going to be about $3,000 more that I spread out, you know, over time. So that's basically what I did. I purchased the property, I think it was around April, and I just went to work every day and saved every penny I could. And when I moved in the property, it was around August, which was hot in Detroit. I moved in without a furnace, you know, so it wasn't like I just moved into the spectacular, oh, this is my first house, I'm gonna have new furniture, new everything. I literally scraped every dime I had just to get in there, and then saved up to continue on. But once I got in there, like I said, the neighborhood, I knew all the neighbors, there was a park, it was just a really nice neighborhood.
Well, so actually, you occupied your first house? You lived?
Yeah, because I had to eliminate. So what Brandon Turner, he calls it the income creep. I just knew what it was. I didn't know a name for it. So, you know, Brandon's famous for making names for everything. But yeah, so in order to do anything, I had to eliminate my biggest expense. At the time was my rental payment. I was renting, I was a single family, so I was paying $700 a month in rent. So once I got the first property, that eliminated the rental expense. And that's how I was able to start saving and then start multiplying the properties by basically, versus instead of paying the $700 in rent, since I own the property, I didn't have to pay it so much. So I just took that and saved about $600 into a savings account. And that's how I was able to get my second property fast.
How long? What was the time period actually between closing on the first property and closing on the second property?
Um, it was about 11 months, because I also used my tax return to like push it over where I could do all the renovations as well. So I saved about, I would say about $5,000 in that 11 months without paying rent. And then when I got my income tax the next year, which was about 4, I used that 9,000 to buy my second property. So it was 11 months.
This is incredible. Do you have do you talk to people in a similar situation where you're basically at poverty level, like just above, right? Waitress salary. I mean, you're probably not, you're not going around in fancy cars or anything, just, providing for your kids and pulling yourself by shoestrings. Like, it sounds to me, you should be gathering like these you should be teaching a class in university. I mean, like that's
well, because that, it's interesting the way you say that, because that's a lot of times that's people's reality. Right? So a lot of times, you had mentioned earlier social media and Instagram, and you see all these people just killing it, but that's not reality. The reality is the people that are out there, slugging it out, getting punched in the face in the morning because they wake up and, a tenant trashed their property and left, and you're trying to figure it out, and you don't have the money. That's reality of owning a rental property, and that's what landlords deal with, And so, yeah, I mean, that what she's talking about is exactly what a lot of people go through. But even more so, people don't even take the steps that they did, because they would have stopped at the $6,300 price point of a property. And they go, that's got to be a horrible situation. I would never do that. And she's saying, like, that's where families live. It's fine, And do you agree with that, Ashley?
Yeah, I definitely agree with it. So like you said, people would be fearful and just look at the price tag and just run away, where I was willing to get in there and do the work and stick it out, and that's why I really am trying to build so much, because obviously I have 10 jobs. It feels like I'm always busy, but I try to give back and help as much as possible. But on my Instagram and any social media that I do in a podcast, I want to be as real as possible, because I want to speak to people that were like me.
Yeah.
You know, even at my second property, I still didn't have a general contractor. It was just word of mouth, going to Home Depot. So I want to speak to people like me that don't have a leg up, who just really don't know what to do, but they're willing to sacrifice a year or willing to live frugally for a year so they can get started. And just the reality, like you said, Steve, that they don't teach this stuff in universities. And if you're looking on Instagram, you may just think like, oh, everything is glitz and glamour, and and you won't really see the real like punch in the face moment. So that's what I'm really trying to put out there, and really trying to speak to people so I can inspire people to just get out there and do it, any way they can.
It's like I always tell people, the great thing about real estate is there's no rules. You can do whatever you want to do. The bad thing about real estate is there's no rules, and there's no one to tell you you're doing something wrong until you're standing in front of a judge, or you're getting subpoenaed for a lawsuit to go, oh, I didn't know that was illegal because I didn't know what the laws were. And that's the part that people don't talk about. And I think that, like very much like me, like you, we've taken our licks over the years and we've learned lessons. And so if we start moving forward now, it's been 10 years, right? It's 2009, it's the end of 2019. And you now have 15 houses, is that right?
Yes.
And you've obviously got some sort of system down, I'm assuming, of how you buy them, and now you manage properties. Is the managing of the properties a means to, is that a strategy to grow a business, or is that just to satisfy your properties and extra properties or just help out? Like, is that a, you know what I mean? Is that a focused, definite business model, or is that just I got them, I need to manage them, I might as well manage other people's while I'm doing it?
I think it was opportunistic for her, but I want to hear Ashley. Maybe it's grown into something else by now.
Definitely. So it was really because I'm doing it for myself, I might as well do it for others, obviously. There is a business opportunity there, but I'm a person that really believes in integrity and doing things the right way. And I just hear horror stories all the time. So it's really hard for me to transition with letting the business grow massively, because I know I have to trust other people, to put my name behind things. But that is definitely a goal. But because of the systems that I've put in place and the trials and tribulations that I've made through this time, I've got really good at it, so it's like, it's just a no-brainer to do it for other people and to help other people, but I feel like I should just self-manage my own, because honestly, I'm sorry about that.
See how famous you are? You probably got someone else wants to give you a property.
I know, that's an alarm system. And that's the only thing that comes through the, when you sound off. But sorry about that. But I feel like that I'm sorry. Is this edited?
We good?
You're good. Keep flowing.
Keep rolling.
That's life, right? That's the reality of life.
But no, I know what I was saying. So, but to be honest, even though, so altogether it's about 47 properties that I manage right now, including my 15, because I manage that in the business. But I spend about 4 hours a week, if that. So even now, like today, I haven't got one tenant call, one late at night phone call, because I manage things so good and so systematically that I don't really deal with a ton of the issues that other property managers or other landlords may deal with, because I feel like just doing everything up front. So typically when I turn over a house to a tenant, everything is pretty much done. So even if it's just something as simple as a doorknob, I'll just go ahead and change everything up front. And that way I can have a long time with like repair free or, low maintenance issues. So the property management becomes so easy that I can take on more people, and I'm really not even spending a ton of time in the business. That's how I'm able to work part-time, 20 hours a week. And then now I just started the new coaching business.
So are you looking to expand? Like what I've learned is any business needs a whole business model structure. You got to have a vertical, and property management, as we both know, is very, very process procedure driven. So are you looking to expand that and make that a bigger play in what you're doing? And is that going to overtake your investment properties, or is it kind of, you're going to keep this on the side and grow your investment portfolio? Like, what's the strategy? Coaching.
Absolutely. So I feel like I'm going to always be an investor first. Mm-hmm. I want to grow that business as much as possible. And then coaching and knowledge, education, and then property management. So there's no reason why all three of them couldn't be huge, but that's just the way I'm going. So even now, I just picked up 2 clients just based upon the interviews and the podcast I've been doing. So I'm definitely willing to pick up more people, and I'm doing it a lot with my coaching calls, but I just need people that are really serious and they match with me and my business model. For example, if I talk to people and they just want, well, they're only $20,000 properties, let's just throw it in there, put 5 grand in, throw someone in there. That's somebody that I just wouldn't work with, because I have to have a level of integrity and a standard that I do. So I'm growing the business daily, but it's not growing massively because I am very selective of the properties that I pick and also the people that I work with.
This is a good lesson for all of us who are running property management companies. We have to understand who is the best client that we can help,
say no,
like we're fit for,
yeah.
And then deliver the services. But I wanted to project, like, this one thing I wanted to help project your story into our audience circumstance. I'm going to make that attempt because when I was listening to your story, Ashley, I was thinking, okay, well, she's in Detroit and the properties are so low priced, and that's why it's so much easier to do it there than, let's say, in California, or like I'm in California, I can't do it, or somebody's sitting here in Vegas, or somebody's sitting there in Albuquerque. Like, well, she's got the $6,300 homes, we don't. And I just want to sort of project my thought process around that. How, like, why can't you go to Detroit and make those investments? Like, nobody's stopped. But you're probably not, like, as a listener, you're probably not making $20,000. And if you, as a waiter or waitress, maybe you're making 60, 65, and you're spending every dime. Yeah. And then maybe you're in the credit card debt.
Broke is broke, man. Right, if you have less than what you started off, at the end of the month, you're broke. I don't care how much you're making.
The lesson is, I think the key lesson is, which most people are just not willing to do, but need to really truly look inside themselves and find this delayed gratification. I think that, to me, was like the biggest key to the story that took me a little bit while to understand. And in fact, all the way up until this podcast, like, what is the secret? I think it's like delaying your gratification. They've done plenty of scientific psychological studies. Like, kids are unable to delay gratification at all. Like, they'll take one candy over 6 candies. Like my daughters, 8 and 5, and like tomorrow almost does not exist. Like, you'll get an ice cream tomorrow, right, Dad? Like, you have a child too. Like, no, tomorrow does not exist.
Dan is a child.
Yeah. but like, this is really interesting to me. But I wanted to unpack a little bit, like, the pre-investor story of Ashley. Like, I wanted to know, like, how, and Steve already alluded to this, but like, your mindset shift had happened somehow. Like, how did you learn? You mentioned about seminar. Like, I want to find that, like, pivotal moment for you.
Right, absolutely. So I would probably say early on, like, everybody, all the kids, even as like 9 and 10, everybody was watching Nickelodeon. I was watching HGTV. The transformation was just the biggest thing. So I guess that's what kind of started it. I didn't realize, like, the investment, everything I've done, it's just been year by year, just increasing and changing the goals. But I just wanted to really transformation, flip this house, do the transformation. And I didn't realize about the financial freedom and the passive income and things like that. So that was always early on fascinating to me. At 17, I had my first child. I was a teen mother. I was still in high school, and she was born prematurely. She was 2 pounds and 7 ounces. So I was in high school, so I would go to school. I would go to the hospital afterwards, and then I would have to leave her about 10 p.m. so I can go to school and the doctors can do their thing. So she was only in the hospital for about 31 days, but I never wanted to leave her again. That really, just being there, I even wrote a journal every day, and I even look back at it now, just seeing my process. That probably was the mind shift. As being a mother, like, I didn't even realize, I was 17, but I was just doing it. It's really a hard thing to do, but I was just like, I just don't want to leave her. I want to be the best mom to her because she's been through a lot being in the hospital, and I just want to make sure she never has to go through this pain. She never has to be without me. So that was the biggest mindset change. But obviously I couldn't just go and do it right then because I was uneducated. I just had a high school diploma. I did 1 semester of college. I didn't have a parent or aunt or uncle I can go to and say, hey, show me how you invest, or show me how to start a business, or can I work for you? I just didn't have anything, and it just came out of sheer necessity. But with being a parent, it's really what shifted my mindset.
That's
you
very
know,
interesting.
Very
interesting.
There's something that you said that, you asked about a pivotal point, and I don't think that, from what she's saying and a lot of people, I don't think there's always a pivotal point. I think what happens is it's a compound effect of watching, maybe something in her life, or like for me, 9/11 or something that made you actually do that shift. But a lot of it is compounding up over time, and you're building it up. And what I guess one of the things I'm curious with Ashley is, I wonder if because you didn't have people in the industry to tell you why something wouldn't work, it's kind of like if you don't know what you don't know, right? If all of a sudden you're thinking, I'm just going to do this, and everyone's like, all right, knock yourself out. A lot of times it's all these people telling you why it won't work, why this won't happen, why that won't happen, and that stops you from doing it. It sounds like you didn't have anyone to tell you yay or nay, so it's like, you know what? I don't know what I don't know, so I'm just going to keep on moving. And so I guess, was there a pivot, or was it just compounding over time and finally something caused you to actually make that jump?
Yeah, so it was just compounding, like you said. So there was no one thing in particular that just made me do it. I would guess say, except for just seeing all the foreclosure signs, as walking past and realizing, hey, how much is that house? $6,000. I can afford that. Now if I would start calling those signs and they're saying 80,000, then I probably wouldn't be here today. Right. But so it was just a compounding, being a problem solver. I knew I wanted to be with my kids as much as possible. I had to have passive income, and seeing signs and calling them and seeing the prices, I knew I could afford it, and that's just basically what it was.
Now, let me ask you this. How do you think differently now compared to how you thought back before you even bought your first deal? Like, now you got 15 deals, you probably look at them, it's probably not as emotional. What do what goes through your mind now when you see an opportunity compared to what you saw back at deal zero?
Absolutely. So now it's just trying to do as many as possible, not if it's $100,000 and I don't have the cash, not just scrolling past it. I'm at to the point where let me reach out to people and use my resources and find a deal. So the only thing that really changes is having more liquid cash, available credit, but also the connections that I've made, knowing that these are obstacles that should not stop me, versus back then. I just honestly, when I started I was 23. I just wanted to be a millionaire by 30. I think it was a Forbes magazine that said there's not a lot of, this was before right when Facebook, think he was the youngest millionaire or something like that. So I'm like, well, I can do that. I can be a millionaire by 30 years old. So the plan was buy 10 houses, and wait for them to appreciate. Once they all be worth $100,000, sell them all, get my $1 million, move to California, and then I'll never have to work again. Obviously, that's
live on social media. You'll be the Instagram queen.
Live
right?
on Social Security in California. $1 million gets you maybe half a house.
You get a tram ticket.
But that just goes to speak to my mindset and how things were 10 years ago. So obviously that has changed dramatically. But that's all up until like 3 years ago. That's all I was just trying to do, just get 10 properties before, I wasn't quite a millionaire at 30, but I had my 10 properties at 30. So I did hit that goal, even though things have drastically changed. So another thing I want to talk about. So when I did my Bigger Pockets interview, it came out around May 24th. At that point, I had 10 properties free and clear, in Detroit. So that was like a big selling point. And that's what I had prided myself upon, just doing this thing. I didn't realize it was a story or really, great, but I just wanted to do it free and clear and just have as less debt as possible. Well, since May 24th until fast forward, I just bought my last property September 18th. I picked up 5 homes just in that short period of time. So there's been a mind shift or a mindset shift just within these last 5 months.
So are you, like, let's go back a little bit. Are you leveraging now? Was that the biggest shift? So you're leveraging where before it was free and clear. I want to own it so nobody can take it away from me. Nobody can touch it. I can make all the changes I need to make. Like, I'm not responsible to anyone. I don't need to be obligated to anyone. And now, since that interview, you're saying that you are more open to leverage because that will speed up your
scalability. Yeah, it's a velocity of money is what it is.
Absolutely. So so back in April when I did my portfolio, I was at, including my primary, I was at $765,000 free and clear you know, for my 10 properties with my primary. So fast forward to today, I'm at $1,055,000.
Look at you.
Now these are, so
Congratulations.
I'm a millionaire at 33, you know, even though I don't feel like it, but I am. And I did that just by leveraging. So I could have, I mean, only did 4. I could have done 10 and had, you know, maybe 600,000 to play with, but I only did 4 because I want to kind of even it out. I haven't really thought of how much I want to leverage, but I know I can probably do up to 10, and then I can start using other financial ways. But these are properties that are some of my properties. I have one that's appraised at only 40,000. You know, some are 50, some are 70, but so these aren't $100,000 houses, you know, obviously. But so doing this in Detroit, properties that I paid $1,900 for are appraising for 60,000.
Yeah, so I mean the numbers are through the roof. Your ROI is huge. I mean,
So when
I'm a millionaire, and I was able to do that in one. You know, I've increased my equity by almost 300,000 just in 5 months, just by leveraging the HELOCs and the hard money loan. But what I did not talk about on previous interviews, because I didn't realize how good it was. But even now with my $1 million portfolio, I still bring home 12,000 a month in passive income. Nice. Just from my rentals. That's not including my coaching, my property management, or my bank job. So that's amazing, because in California or any other place, you can have $1 million worth of properties, or maybe I know a guy that has $6 million in property. He doesn't bring home $12,000 in passive income a month. It's more like $6,000. So that's what Midwest and Detroit has, you know, been able to do for me. The cash flow is second to none.
now let me ask you this, Ashley, and you know, it sounds like you're utilizing cash flow and you're doing stuff with this, and you know, obviously you like Detroit, and there's a emotional tie there because you're from there. Do you ever think about going into other markets and scaling out for maybe starting to get maybe appreciating properties? Because you know, Detroit's good, you're making cash flow, but it's not going to go up exponentially like it would in the Bay Area or California, right? So have you thought about scaling out into other areas, or are you thinking of staying just in Detroit?
Well, she's coming to California. She's done.
Well, yeah, she's social media queen, right?
So I'm definitely, if the numbers make sense, I'm willing to invest anywhere. So I just went out to Vegas. I love Vegas. I feel like Vegas is my second home. The thing is, like I said, it's more appreciation, less cash flow. It's just so hard to do when you're getting so much cash flow and passive income, and you are appreciating these properties. So I don't want to go too much into, you know, my deals, but for example, I closed the deal for $11,000 on my birthday, August 12th. That house rents out for $1,100 a month. But not only that, after a $17,000 renovation, so I only spent $27,000 into the property. It appraised at $65,000. So after I have 6 months of ownership, I can go pull out my $27,000 plus an extra 5 or 10. So, you know, so even though it's not appreciating ton, it's basically doing deals for free. All you're doing is waiting 6 months to pull your money out. Yeah. So if I find better deals like that, and I know a lot of Indiana, Tennessee, and Ohio, you know, I'm looking in Ohio now, but the cash flow is what I'm really after in the long term. Sure. So the difference is though, because not only with Detroit, there's not a lot of demand in some of those other places, you know, or even if it is demand, then you're not getting that high of a rent, you know. So Detroit, what's so special about Detroit is, you got all these properties, but if you're decent at your job, like me, if you go over and beyond, I have 0 vacancies. Nice. And I'll have 20 applications in a week, you know. So that's what I feel like why I'm so focused on Detroit. But if I can get those things in other places, I'm more than willing to do so. So I went, I'm not sure if you heard of like Ryan Penna, the All-Star investor. Yeah, I was actually able to meet up with him out in Vegas. Such an amazing thing. We had a great conversation, and he was kind of schooling me on the Vegas market. And there's some value there for me as a primary residence, but as an investor, like a buy and hold, it doesn't really make that much sense. So I would just say, and I know I dragged that question on so long, but I would just say if I can get the kind of returns and numbers, or, you know, in other markets, then I would do so. but I just don't want to risk my portfolio, because obviously if I did it in California, a market that would appreciate, I would have to have a lot of cash or, some kind of leverage. And then that would potentially put me at risk, if something goes wrong.
But I bet there are people who would say similar things in the markets they're in because they figured out a niche. Like in Seattle.
Yeah, you get the rhythm down of what you're doing.
You can make money in Seattle. You can make money in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Ashley, this was a terrific interview. I really enjoyed it. I think our audience enjoyed it as well. Yeah. Steve, do you have a last question?
I do. I have a last question. Detroit in general, what is happening with the city? Is it the same? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? I think a lot of people want to know, like, what is Detroit like?
Right, absolutely. So Detroit was completely bankrupt about 8 years ago. Who would want to invest or live in a bankrupt city? Now we have multimillionaires investing. It's a ton of revitalization. So just to speak on that, like I said, I was lucky enough to buy a property on August 12th for my birthday for $11,000. I bought a property September 18th on the same street for $33,000. Wow. So, it was just the luck of the deal, but the market is definitely creeping up. I have investors calling me all the time. The market is saturated with investors, which is bringing the prices up. So that's the only thing that's changed. It's not a lot of inventory, a ton of it at low prices, where I need to start probably leveraging mortgages or, spending more cash to buy properties. But other than that, it's all changing for the better. We have a couple big auto plants coming into town. We have the casinos. There's tons of redevelopment. It's just going up. And I feel like we were already at the worst, at the rock bottom. So there's nowhere but to go, but up.
That's great. That's great. And, the one thing I'll just to finish this up, I'll say that, like in Houston, whenever there's a natural disaster, anywhere, but I know this from Houston and like anywhere, it's not the government that rebuilds the houses and gets housing going. It's investors. It's investors that take their own money, they take their time, they invest in properties, they make them livable, and they do that. So investors, like you had said, are the ones that are actually rebuilding cities with their own money, with their hard work, and they're making places that were unlivable. They're seeing opportunity. They're putting in their time, sweat, equity, and they're making these places livable that now people can buy, people can come in. And that's the same in any city, especially after a disaster or dilapidated area like this. And all of a sudden, prices start going up. Well, it's interesting.
And that's why our mission is, creating happy homes and healthy investments, because it all comes in the full circle. So here at Mynd, we help people manage their properties as well as acquire investment properties through our tool called Investimate. But hey, if you guys want to go and follow this wonderful lady and see her succeed and continue to thrive, go to Instagram, Detroit_investor. She's got 6,400 followers. Like when we publish, I'd like to get a couple thousand, right? A couple thousand more, not down, but a couple thousand more. And maybe Steve's like trying to keep up.
I know, she lapped me, she doubled me, man.
Steve, what is your handle?
I'm like 3,300.
What is your handle?
Oh, my handle is Rosenberg Steve. So it's ROZENBERG STEVE.
You really need to spell that.
Well, a lot of people spell with an S. That's very normal.
Ashley, it was an immense pleasure. Steve. Yeah. Same here as well. And thank you very much for listening.
And also, if anybody wants to follow us on Facebook, go to our real estate group, Facebook Mastermind Real Estate Investment Club. Obviously, please join and like our iTunes account. Leave us a review. Share it with someone. Let people know about Ashley because she is awesome. She's going to be a rock star, and we will say that we knew her back when she only had 15 before she dominated the world. Yeah.
Small.
And if you want to talk to Ashley about coaching, you want to talk to her about real estate, you want to talk about any of that stuff, I mean, you and I have chatted a lot offline. I mean, you're such a likable person. You're a bundle of energy, and you're very inspiring. So I hope you keep doing what you're doing, Ashley.
Yes, thank you. And I did want to say something else, guys, just to the listeners that are fearful or maybe just trying to get in there. I would just really want to tell people to just do what you can, try to save as much as possible, and just get your first deal done. Absolutely. You can do this. If I can do it at $20,000 a year, you guys can do it. And I just had a quote that I came up with, or I mean, obviously it's probably been out there, but a failure is not a fail. It is an attempt that did not go as planned. So if you look at things like that, then you'll never be discouraged, because if you wouldn't have attempted it, you wouldn't have been able to succeed or fail. So a failure is not a fail. It's an attempt that did not go as planned. So just attempt. Reach out to me if you need any questions. I love to help new people, but just get your first property going and it'll just all waterfall from there. And follow these guys. Steve has a great book. He tried to downplay it, but it's very great.
Thank you.
Amazing. I love him. I love his story. And Alex, I appreciate you. And I really want to get to know you more and see what you're doing. And I look forward to working with you guys.
Great. Thank you guys for listening. Ashley, thank you. Steve.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.